Today we're going to look at two teachers that are thinking about buying years so they can retire early. One teacher is 52, the other teacher is 35. So we're going to take you through some steps of what the 52-year-old is doing so you can see his thought process. And then we'll talk about the 35-year-old that is also thinking about buying years early when she's 35 because she's heard that it's smarter to buy when you're younger because it's cheaper. So she's thinking about buying years at the age of 35 for her future retirement.
Nice.
So for this example, this is just a fictitious person. He's 52, let's say. He's been teaching for 29 years, so he has 29 years of PERA credit. And if he buys one more year, he'll have a full pension. He'll get 75%. Part of what PERA does is they look at your 3 highest years of salary to determine how much your pension is going to be and how many years how much it costs to buy your years. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is in a booklet, page 9. I recommend that you read the purchasing service credit booklet that PERA has on their website. It is 32 pages, but they have a lot of really good information.
Yeah, it's only 32 pages. They did us a favor. They know that us teachers are busy, so they made it small.
Yeah, and there's a lot of random things that might benefit you or make you realize like buying years isn't going to work for me. So he's doing all this information. He finds out because it's on page 10 in the chart. I'll show you right here. So this is page 10 in that 32-page booklet I referred to earlier. And when you're 52, if you're hired before 2006, it costs you 34.51% of your highest 3 years salary.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. And then you come back here. We're using simple math to make this easy. So these are just simple math numbers to show you the process. Imagine he's making $100,000. Take that times 34.51. It's going to cost him $34,510 to buy a year.
That's 1 year.
1 year.
Okay.
Exactly. And he's on PERA table 2, which is on page 14 in the booklet. All right. So right here, if he buys a year, his pension will go to 75%. If he decides not to buy a year and retires, it'll be at 66.8. That's a difference of 8.2%.
Yeah, and I think that's substantial enough.
Yeah.
I think when you look at it and you're going from 66 or 67 even to 75, that's a substantial enough jump. If you were going from like 72 to 75, maybe that's a different number, but please run your own numbers and make sure it works for you. But I think that an 8% jump.
That's a huge jump for $34,000.
Yeah.
And sorry I didn't have this up earlier, but you can see this is PERA table 2. This is the one he's under. You go from 29 to 30. You can see it right here on the chart. So you can look at the PERA tables.
Yeah.
Of what Justin was just talking about. So then he realizes, all right, that's about an $8,000 difference right there by buying that year.
Okay.
And keep in mind, it costs him about $34,000 to buy a year if he decides to do that.
Okay.
So in his head, he's thinking, all right, in 4 years, that's paid for.
Paid off.
Paid off. Cost $32,000 roughly. Again, I'm rounding the numbers to keep it simple.
Right.
And at this point, he's only 57.
Yeah, you broke even basically at 57, and the rest of your money is your money.
Exactly. So for this example, he says, I'm going for it. I'm going to buy a year, and I'm leaving a year early. Let's
nice.
Imagine.
He got to retire.
He retired, with a full pension.
Yep.
Because, and we need to talk about this, where did he get his $34,000? You can use cash, obviously. But the most common way, I believe, is you can roll money over from your 401k from PERA or your 457, and that can buy you the year.
Nice.
But again, there's other ways you can do that. That's why you want to read the whole packet.
Yeah.
To see what exists.
Get some information that helps your circumstances.
Exactly. Now let's take a look at a 35-year-old, done a really good job saving in the stock market, so she has some money, and she can afford to buy a year. So she's 35. If she buys a year right now, it's going to cost her about 20%. The actual number is 19.79. So it's cheaper, obviously, than when you're 52.
You're talking 15% cheaper.
A lot cheaper.
That's a lot cheaper.
So people get stuck on that.
Yeah.
They see that and like, why wouldn't I buy now when I can? Because when I'm at that age, it's going to cost me so
That's
much
expensive.
More. Well, we're going to address why you might not want to buy, even if you have the money at 35.
Okay.
What if she quits teaching?
That's the big one.
Yeah.
What if she's done? Right? She's 35, something else comes up. Maybe she wants to even just be a stay-at-home mom.
Stay-at-home mom, exactly.
Yeah.
She might meet some wonderful man that says, we're moving to Alabama if you want to stay with me. And she's like, I'm out of here. I love you so much. I'll move to Alabama. So she quits teaching here and goes to Alabama.
Yep. And this is Colorado PERA. Does Colorado PERA work in Alabama?
It does not.
Yeah.
So she has the right thoughts that buying years is going to benefit her, but no one's for sure if they're going to teach long enough for it to pay off.
Yeah.
So be very hesitant to buy early is my advice. Because she's on PERA Table 7, by the way. Let me go over here to that. So PERA Table 7, as you can see, is set up different than PERA Table 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's worse. By the way, there's 9 PERA tables, and the higher the number they get, the worse they get.
Yep.
So PERA Table 1 is the best. PERA Table 9 is horrible.
Yeah, it's the worst.
It's the worst. If you don't believe me, type in PERA Table 9 and you'll see why. But for example, if she quit, she's 15 years in, let's say, and she already bought a year, well, she has to wait till 60 to collect her 23.8%.
Yeah, that's it.
That was financially a bad decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she quit too early for it to really pay off.
Right.
That's my beliefs. You can have different beliefs, but I'm doing math to figure this out. So what I would
Well, and the same thing. If she only bought 1 year from 14 to 15, you're going from 22 to 23.
Yeah.
That's 1% difference. That's not
hundreds of thousands,
it's
a
not
lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm glad you pointed that out. 22.2 to 23.8 is not the kind of jump that you have when you get towards the end of your teaching career, if you last that long, towards the 30 years roughly. So what she could do, she can do whatever she wants. It's her personal finance. But what someone might recommend to her, sorry, the technology's a little slow, is keep the money in the stock market. Let it grow, and hopefully it grows a good amount, because if she decides still to buy towards the end of her career, then I'll go back to this. Then that money that she was going to use then, if it can grow 8 to 10% on average over 15 years, it'll be a bigger number.
Yeah.
So even though it will cost more, her money had 15 years to grow.
Right.
So what some people would suggest is let the money grow in the stock market, because towards the end, she might want to buy 2 years, and she might have enough in her 401k to do it and retire early.
Yeah. So don't just let your money sit and hope, but actually start putting that money that you want to use for your buying your years into a vehicle that can help you out, that can grow.
Exactly. Or she might like teaching so much she teaches for 35 years, and then buying a year wasn't really worth it, because once you get to 87.5, which is a crazy number, it's a long time teaching. Can you imagine doing that for 35 years? I did 25 and a half, and I felt like that was a long time. Well, if you buy a year here, you're going up to 90%, because once you hit 87.5, it only goes up 2.5%.
Yeah.
So buying a year, if you run the math, most likely it doesn't benefit you, but you'd have to do the math and figure that out for yourself.
Yeah.
So what I did, just a quick example, is I was 10 years into teaching, and I found out how much it would cost to buy 4 years. And I told myself, I don't know if I'm going to teach until I'm 50.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm loving it right now, but I'm only 10 years in. Things can happen. So I decided to wait, kept my money in the stock market, let it grow. And then when I bought my 4 years, it was more, but I had more in the stock market to pay for it. So it was basically a wash.
Nice.
Basically cost me about the same thing it would have cost me back then.
Nice.
But I had the assurance of that I want to do it, and I want to retire at 50 versus teaching till 54.
Yeah, you gave yourself some options.
Yeah.
Right? Do I want to keep going? Do I want to get out early? You have the options now with that money, not already spent because you bought your years early.
Exactly. So to kind of go over this little summarize this, first step we suggest is apply to buy years.
Yeah. When you apply to buy years, they automatically, if I'm correct here, Ryan, they automatically tell you how many years you can buy, right?
Exactly. And how much it would cost if you decide to do it right then.
Okay.
And you don't have to, because like I said, I was 10 years in. I was curious. I thought I could buy about around 4 years. The
Mm-hmm.
actual number was 3.954, if I remember right, because they actually do it by weeks and months and days. It's really bizarre. They don't round it.
How many sick days did you take off?
Yeah, all those crazy things. So first, find out if you even qualify for years. Second step, then Read the whole booklet, 32 pages, not bad, like you
Not
said.
bad.
And then you can say, is this going to be part of my game plan? Is this something that I might want to do when I'm in my 50s or 60s or whatever age?
Right.
Buying years might financially benefit me. Maybe I should start investing in the stock market so I'll have some money, for example, that I could buy a year or two.
Right.
So kind of form a plan. And maybe this will be the point where you're like, no, I'll never buy years, so I don't need to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
At least you can move on from it.
Right. One thing I would throw in there is, what if you were a teacher right out of college? You never had a job prior to working. Like, you were in high school, you never had a job. During college, you never had a job, and you got out of college and went right into the teaching career. Should I fill out this application?
That's a great point. You still should, because maybe there's some things that are less obvious that you qualify for, but the majority of the way people qualify to buy years is paying into Social Security.
Mm.
So I paid into about 4 years of Social Security working random jobs in high school and college. If I would have done 5 years worth of work, I would have qualified for 5 years. If I would have done less, it would have been 2 years, whatever it might be. So the most common way is Social Security. So if you know you've never worked before, most likely you might not be able to qualify to buy any years.
Okay.
But there's some random things that if you're in the military, if you've taught out of state, they might count that. So you still might be worth checking just to
Nice.
double check.
Okay, so definitely start by filling out the application. Easy enough.
Yeah, it takes less than an hour.
Yeah.
They'll send back the
And-
results.
Yeah, there you go.
The results.
You get the results in the mail.
And then you know, like, if you can move forward with this. I'm glad you brought that up, because Social Security is the most common way, what you paid into Social Security before you started teaching.
No, I think that's great. I think it's a super simple application. Fill it out, and they'll let you know anything that you need to do or what you can do right after the application.
Exactly. You'd be surprised how many teachers I remember working with that they were coming towards the end of their career and they were talking about, I'm like, oh, you're going to teach a few more years? I would say, why don't you buy a few years and retire early? Like, I just don't have the money. So, they didn't come up with a plan maybe in their 30s or 40s to potentially buy a year or two. Really great teachers, they just didn't think about that being a possibility down the road. So if you can come up with a plan, then you maybe can say, I have the money and I'm going to buy 2 years, or I have the money, I'm not going to buy any. I don't need to, because I did the math and figured it's not worth it.
Right. Okay.
So definitely give yourself options, which we talked about.
Absolutely.
So buying years is a big part, if you teach long enough, to consider for a lot of teachers.
Oh, yeah.
If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. We'd love to answer any. Don't be afraid to reach out to PERA. They're very helpful.
Yep.
When I was about a year or two out, I would call them with questions and they had all the answers. And they actually gave great advice too, because I'd usually end my phone call with, can you give me any advice or things I should think about? And sometimes they just give me some random, helpful little hints.
Nice.
So they're really good people at PERA. So reach out and double check everything you're doing here.
That's fantastic.
So, all right.
Hope this helps.
Hope.
We'll catch you next time.
Cheers.